Loktargar friends, hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orc Mode workout, and today was Dynamic Effort Bench Press Day. There's a lot to cover. This is going to be a long video, and this is just work sets. Obviously no warm-ups in here because the video would just be too long if I included that. We did a lot of work today. Today was Dynamic Effort on the speed bench, and again, slight increase on the weight, 10 pounds up. Do the same thing next week. And again, running red bands. So this is the second week in the wave, and we'll go up 10 more pounds next week. And I'm doing triples. Now, one of the things that needs to be pointed out here, no, there's no pause, and I'm doing triples. I do doubles on a lot of my speed work. So some people might say, why triples? Mainly because you don't get, with bands, we don't get the full benefit on the first rep of the bands. Meaning, we deal with almost an overspeed eccentric when you're using bands, and so the second and third rep are getting more benefit than the first rep is. So I'm doing triples on it because, again, when you think about compensatory acceleration, you can do up to 3 reps with maximum force, right? With maximum speed, maximum force, all of that. After that, you slow down, and it takes at least 60 seconds before you can produce maximum force again. So what we're dealing with is maximizing that, but here's the other thing. I'm not pausing also for a reason. The overspeed eccentrics with the band pulling you down creates a larger stretch reflex. So when you go up to the top, when the band jerks you back down at the top, with it being continual motion, so after the first rep, when you get to the top, the band pulls you back down. And it tends to create a slightly different form of eccentric rep, slingshotting you back down than dead weight does. And this is one of the benefits of bands. So what happens there is that, again, it creates that overspeed eccentric. That creates a stronger stretch reflex out of the bottom. So we can use that to recruit more pectoral, more tricep, all of that springing out of the bottom, and just use speed to drive it up. So this creates a very pronounced effect in terms of developing explosiveness for hypertrophy, because, again, we're doing this for 30 total reps with compensatory acceleration. So these are all reps that will get the upper threshold fibers, right? Even though we're not using that heavy of a weight, we're using a light weight relative to my max, but we're getting high quality reps. Now, arguably, because we're not quite getting the overspeed eccentric on the first rep, maybe the first rep wouldn't give that much training response, but the second and third do. So we know we're getting at least 20 high quality reps, which is going to be the equivalent in terms of, what does that mean for muscle fiber recruitment? Taking about 4 sets to absolute failure. That's your equivalent in terms of growth stimulus. So you get a lot of hypertrophic benefit out of this. The other thing is, people are noticing I'm tight now. I am arching now. And notice, because of my long arms, that even with an arch, I still have a long range of motion on the bench. For those curious, I measured it the other day because this came up. I have a 72-inch wingspan. So I've got relatively long arms. So again, for me, the bench press is a long range of motion. Now, I can arch further later on to shorten that if I need to, but it's just a decent arch at this point, which is going to bring up another topic when it comes to some of my exercise selection. My lower back is getting fatigued. I'm doing a lot of axial loading. I'm deadlifting twice a week, squatting twice a week. The volumes are going up. I'm reaching the limits of what I can handle in terms of just my lower back, just for the compressive force. And I'm going to have to keep building that work capacity. And that's one reason, and this is what happens on systems like this, you eventually have to go to more and more special exercises for specific performance elements, for specific hypertrophy. And I'm at a point to where I feel like stuff like the push press and the standing press, as amazing as they are for building beginners up and building your strength base, as amazing as they are, I feel like my lower back isn't going to be able to fully handle it and recover with all the other stuff I'm doing. Because I also do extra lower back and ab work. People forget that too. Every day I do hyperextensions and glute ham raise sit-ups and things like that. So that stuff is getting a lot of work. It's not like my core is not getting an enormous amount of training, my lower back and all that stuff. There's a lot of exercises that I don't do on camera. I have 4 different exercises I do a lot of volume with every week that aren't on camera. So all that stuff's getting worked heavy. I'm going to have to go to more and more exercises that don't load my spine. Because with a system like this, what's our third component? Yes, we have maximum strength. Yes, we have maximum power. So we have max effort work, we have dynamic effort work, but we also have repetition work. Why? We need to maximize hypertrophy in any muscle that might be a lagging muscle, because the bigger you are, the stronger you are. And whatever muscle is your weakest link, what does that mean? If you make it bigger, your strength will go up, and then you will continue to gain size everywhere. So I'm having to do exercises to deal with that. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to do some incline bench. I haven't done incline bench in years, and I got under it. Man, I was surprised. And even with a modest incline, people are like, wow, you're close to flat. Well, sort of. Yeah, it is close to flat because I'm running a little bit of an arch there. But a flat bench actually shouldn't be done flat backed, right? It shouldn't be done flat back. You don't get maximum muscle fiber recruitment or strength that way. So this is a mild incline, but it's definitely an incline. It's just relatively mild. But the difference here, 225 was hard. I did like 3 sets of 8, and I don't even know if I got 8 reps on the third set. I lost count. It was either 7 or 8, and I just that's all I can do. So I'm going to have to just build work capacity with 225 on this. But people are going to say, why the incline? Why the incline? Because it replicates part of the benefit I get from the overhead press, but without the full body component to it. And it's also clearly right now a performance weak link for me. It has direct carryover to bench press, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's a longer range of motion exercise. You get a deeper stretch on the chest than you do on a lot of other presses with this, just because of the positioning of it. So because of that stretch, just like we get with a weighted dip, right? Except that this is slightly easier to recover from than a weighted dip. Just like with a weighted dip, that deeper stretch will give some extra pectoral development. And I felt my chest big time. Like I could feel it working fibers in my chest that haven't really been worked in a while. It was a novel training response. And that's the other thing that we need to deal with. I'm an advanced lifter, so anytime I can get a detrained big movement that has direct carryover to my main movements, coming in and spending some time getting good at it will, number one, create a new hypertrophic response. And I don't mean muscle confusion like what people think of with bodybuilders, they'll change something every workout. No, I mean train that lift and get stronger at it, build your work capacity on it. And the incline bench is a big, heavy barbell movement, right? It's a big movement. I wouldn't ever use it as a primary mass builder, but it sure has its place as an accessory work. And I felt it deep in my chest, especially all that entire upper chest area, the entire upper half, front delt. So again, it'll be a good accessory to do once a week. And, I'll figure out how I want to program it. I'm just going to build a little bit of a base on it, then I'll figure out how to program it. And that's the thing. You can take accessory movements on a system like this, and you can run linear periodization if you want to on them, because everything else flows in waves, and you kind of weave the different waves in with a system like this, right? Because you don't run the same pattern for your max effort work that you do your speed work. They have their own separate progressions. Accessory movements can be treated the same way. You could run block periodization on an accessory movement if you want, or you can run linear progression on it, or you can just come in and do it as pump work. And that's the other thing that people forget. No one out there is saying that a bunch of high rep pump work doesn't cause hypertrophy. We're saying it's not the primary driver of hypertrophy. And that's the problem with a lot of silly bodybuilders who use tons and tons of drugs and then try to tell everyone that how they train is the best way to gain size. They're not doing real work first. If you've put in the real work, some additional metabolic fatigue will make you bigger, right? Additional metabolic fatigue will make you bigger, but it's not going to be the primary driver of your hypertrophy. Progressive overload is. So your big exercises are your primary training response. Metabolic fatigue with things like some of this is going to be a secondary response after you've done the real work. So then you can come in and do that. Now, I'm using progressive overload, though, with these JM presses, right? We're working with 5 sets of 10 and working a little bit back and forth with volume and slowly just adding weight with micro loading. So we're focusing on progressive overload on it. But some of these smaller exercises that I'm doing after, they're just there to thicken up my weak links. Like when I go to the side laterals, I'm going to do those for a while, because if I'm going to cut the overhead pressing out, I need to make sure that my delts stay strong. I need to make sure they stay developed. I mean, my delts are getting a lot of work with the rows. They're getting a lot of work with that incline bench is going to add more. But making sure that everything gets worked, the face pulls, the laterals, these small exercises are necessary, because at the end of the day, this is how a system like this works. And that came up and people didn't realize, some people didn't, they were commenting, you're a minimalist, you're not running this sort of system. It's like, well, actually I am. You just haven't been paying attention. I actually fully do understand that in a system like this, the extra volume work on the smaller exercises is part of the success of the system. This is a sort of system that you require all the elements in order to get the results. And if you start cutting any of the elements out, you may fall short. It is about doing max effort work. And it is about specificity of training with that. It is about the dynamic effort work. And it is about the repetition work, the repetition method, using the different big and small exercises, special exercises, even smaller movements, whatever you need to ensure that all of your weaker links are hypertrophying, so that they will be bigger and thicker, so that you will be stronger on your big lifts. And it all has a trickle-down effect. It all has a trickle-down effect. Because, again, a lot of these movements are even used to make your assistance exercises better. But as far as these laterals go, why am I doing them with one arm? I wouldn't recommend you do most things with one arm. In this case, it allows me to get more forward lean. Because if I was going to do this with two arms, I would need something to lean against. Well, there's no need for that. I can just do it with one arm. And it'll give me, again, extra oblique work. It's extra oblique work because I'm having to stabilize it with one arm. But this is an exercise that, with a little bit of forward lean, trains your side delt, your rear delt, your upper traps very effectively. And it's a really easy exercise to do. And it's just a finisher, because all those muscles, I do face pulls, tons of face pulls for those. But rows hit all those, really. I do 10 sets of rows every week. I do 15 to 20 sets of face pulls every week. We're just making sure we're getting a little extra volume there. Because, again, strong shoulders give you a better, stable platform to bench press from. I am doing more bench specialization. So right now, everything on my bench day is related to improving my bench. All my other stuff is done on the other 2 days, right? So even my rows are now done on my squat and deadlift day, because that stuff is all being lumped together. I'm obviously still trying to improve at those. I want my squat and deadlift and all that to go up, obviously. But right now, my bench is a slightly higher priority. So I'm pulling out exercises that don't contribute to my bench press on the bench day and doing more exercises that will carry over to the bench press. Those first two have a direct performance benefit, right? The incline bench, direct carryover to my bench. JM press, direct carryover to the bench. Then exercises like this, additional shoulder work to give me a more stable platform in my shoulder girdle to bench from. Then we do hammer curls. Why? Well, the most obvious is my biceps and brachialis and all that are a weak link in my rows. My rows are a primary exercise in stabilizing my bench, improving my deadlift. So if my rows go up, I get more grip training with a heavier weight, because I'll be able to handle a heavier weight for the same number of reps on rows. So I get more grip training every week for free without having to do extra work for it. My back will get thicker and stronger, and it'll help my deadlift, and it'll help my bench. Also, that area, because again, I'm kind of at my recovery limit on some of those exercises. I can't handle more rowing. The pull-ups become a problem. Chin-ups are a problem for my bicep tendons. Right now, they're inflamed still. Can't do them. So if I want additional work there, the hammer curl, because it's not just bicep, you need brachialis, you need brachioradialis. All of that area around the elbow helps create a spring effect at the bottom of the bench press. If you thicken that up enough, it might be worth 5 more pounds on your bench. And again, more meat around the elbow joint. So again, there's a method to the madness here. There's a trickle-down effect. We look at these things and say, how do these little small exercises, are they the ones that I need to carry over to hit weak links that are going to give me more stability on an exercise? Are they going to give me a direct strength carryover on that exercise? Is it going to create extra meat in a place that might help me either stabilize that lift or spring that lift higher if they're not primary movers, or you're just going to directly train primary movers in a way that's sport specific? Incline bench has very good carryover to the flat bench. JM press, particularly for someone with a tricep weakness like me, direct carryover. So we're making sure that we're getting more overall performance. Now, some people will be like, well, Jason, your chest doesn't seem to be the weak link on the bench right now. Why the incline? It's only done once a week. It's just one exercise that ensures that my chest is getting more work, make sure that my chest is growing a little bit while we're focusing more on the triceps. The JM presses are getting 10 sets every week. We're doing all accommodating resistance for the non-pause bench specific work, right? For all the other max effort work. Bands and chains for the speed work. So it is very tricep dominant. But just because we're going to be tricep dominant in our accessories doesn't mean we don't do any chest work. Right? Doesn't mean we don't do any. It just takes a much lower priority. But everything needs to be thick. Everything needs to be strong. And that's the thing with the bench press. And this is one reason we are doing a little bit more smaller fluff and pump work and just overall thickness exercises for the upper body. The bench press is very, very muscle strength dominant. It is very, very dependent upon overall mass in your upper body. It is that one of those lifts that the more meat you can add to your upper body in general, the more that exercise tends to improve. And that includes even fat. Even adding fat to your upper body makes your bench go up. But muscle makes it go up even more. So again, this is a case of if you want to specialize in your bench, you probably need to get your upper body thicker. And that means the chest, the triceps, your delts, even your biceps, forearms, all of that stuff. Anything that can be used to create more leverage and more mass in the upper body is going to improve your bench press. In addition to the sport-specific training and the strength curves and the extra heavy pause benching, it's again, bench press is its own little beast in terms of making it go up. And for me, it's been a weak link for a long time because I care more about more larger exercises. And this is what I have to do to bring it up. So right now, my training is a little bit biased towards improving my bench more than my other lifts, even though I want everything to go up. So it's a slight prioritization right now. And so the rest of the training is going to reflect that, which is exactly what we're doing on these bench press days. Whereas in all my other training, goes on the other 2 days. So the other 2 days a week are really geared towards improving my overall strength and then my squat and my deadlift. But the bench press and its specialization is getting 2 days entirely of its own every single week. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.